Welcome to EventUp, the place where people enthusiastic about events stay in the know on the latest trends within the events industry. Live, hybrid, and virtual experiences. From virtual events to conferences, award galas, and everything in between. Here's your host, Amanda Ma.
Hello everyone, I'm excited for today's episode as it's packed with fresh insights and behind the scenes from the world of brand marketing. Joining us today is Anuj Chhabra, Mezcal Portfolio Lead at Pernod Ricard. Anuj is a classically trained brand marketer currently leading the Mezcal Portfolio at Pernod Ricard. He previously worked with iconic brands like Johnnie Walker, Absolut Vodka, and Malibu Rum. And he got his start at Procter Gamble on Old Spice and Gillette. Anuj is passionate about being an inclusive and empowering leader and loves bringing people together through memorable brand experiences. And I love his work, so I'm so glad he's here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
So how did you first get started in the beverage industry? I mean, we kind of went through on your bio, but what led you to your current role?
Yeah, it's actually been a pretty long and winding journey. I first got started in the beverage industry when I was at college. I actually worked in sales for a local brand. It was a tea brand started by a Duke student at the time. And so I worked in sales and loved kind of the impact of scaling a brand and obviously the cash bonus, selling it into a new bar, cafe. That was my first start. After that, I ended up interning at Anheuser-Busch, one of the world's biggest brewer, in their sales department again. And so got some more experience there. But my dream job was always Procter Gamble. And so once I got that role, I moved to Cincinnati full time and got a best-in-class brand marketing experience at the place that literally created brand management 100 years ago. And so as you mentioned, I was working on Old Spice and Gillette, really powerful billion-dollar brands with an amazing team. And so I had an amazing professional experience. But I think the East Coast, where my friends and family are, and also just the beverage industry, which is so central to connections, to conviviality, was calling my name. And so I jumped back into the beverage industry around 2018 at Diageo. I worked on Johnnie Walker, which was also a dream. And around 5 years ago, I left Diageo to join Pernod Ricard, where I currently am. And I've had an amazing experience at Pernod, working across Absolut Vodka, Malibu Rum, and as you mentioned before, currently the Mezcal portfolio.
What a journey. I recently actually just went to the Gamble House again, which is in Los Angeles. And we saw they started by selling soap. That was so interesting. And we saw one of the original soap packaging, which I find so fascinating.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while. I think 1837, and so nearly 200 years, starting, with soap, and then now, of course, so many other massive brands. But really, really cool training ground to work at. Amazing people. So I'm really thankful for that experience.
So you have so much of these global brand experience, right? But your current brand is a little bit different. It's a little bit more nimble. What has that been like?
Yeah, you're right. Just about all my previous experience has been with these established billion-dollar brands. And so I feel like when I've been in those roles, it's felt like more, I'm like the steward of something really, really special. And I'm keen to take what has worked in the past and evolve it for more of today. I would say in the current role, it's awesome because I'm working on the number one mezcal portfolio in the industry and in the world with Del Maguey and then Ojo de Tigre. But I would say it's been a completely different experience within the walls of a really large company. And so it's a much more hands-on and scrappy experience, diving into the performance of the brand, thinking about even hey, these are a couple of bars that we really want to get into that are influential in our industry, scrutinizing ROI and budgets and so forth. And so it's been a much different experience that's helped round out my marketing skill set. I think what's been really enjoyable about it has been getting out and about and actually selling in these brands, in markets, and seeing, how they're really sold in and so forth. And so I've loved it. And I'm really thankful to have experience across both these big, billion-dollar brands, which I would say is one skill set, and then also these smaller, scrappier brands, and also, basically building them from the ground up.
When you say small and scrappy, is it more like a startup kind of vibe, would you say?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, Pernod Ricard is a pretty large company. We're at around 20,000 people globally. And Del Maguey, that's the number one mezcal in the world. It launched in 1995. So it really created the artisanal mezcal category in the US. But as I mentioned, I also work on Ojo de Tigre mezcal. And so that's a really, relatively small brand in the US that Pernod invested in a couple of years ago. We recently began the commercial execution, operations, and distribution. And I was tasked with leading some of that. And so that really is just about as much of a startup as you can expect, scaling it almost from the ground up, which has been a complete new learning journey for me.
I love hearing that because it's just like you said, it's a new learning journey for you. So it must be so exciting. Change it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Keep it exciting. And every time I talk to you, you know all these facts. It goes to show you really know the brand and the kind of the essence behind the brand and definitely all the history. It just rolls off your tongue. I love that.
Yeah, I've tried to really immerse myself in all aspects of the brand. I would say it definitely is easier in mezcal and tequila, where it means maybe drinking mezcal margaritas. Back when I used to work on Old Spice, for me, that meant trying out a bunch of deodorants and body washes, which is pretty random. And so I used to have like a bag under my sink with like 30 different body washes and deodorants. And every day I try out a different one. So yeah, I would say it's a lot more enjoyable these days, working in mezcal and tequila than in body wash and deodorant.
Love that. You can mix the passion with the fun. So that's great. How about in terms of any recent challenges that you're facing at Del Maguey, and how are you like creatively solving it, right? Because as leaders, it doesn't just come in a linear format. Sometimes you really had to push the envelope a little bit and be creative.
Yeah, I would say on Del Maguey, it's an amazing brand, amazing portfolio, still made in the same artisanal ways it's been made for 30 years. But the biggest focus is really on education. We have 20 different expressions made by different families and so forth. And so again, education is the key focus. And so what I did around a year or so ago, along with a peer, was we co-founded this internal group to kind of pilot what education looks like. And so we called it Mez Pals, which I think is a funny and cute name. We created a really cool logo. And then we also worked with a Oaxacan designer to create craveable swag. And so we turned what was the small idea actually into like an internal movement. I mean, we were able to enlist 250 people internally who are all now Mez Pals and essentially brand advocates through monthly programming, showcasing the full portfolio, going out to bars, leveraging our brand ambassadors and so forth. And so we really had a lot of fun doing that. And we continue to have events monthly in the office. But what we wanted to do, and I think seeing that success, is actually launch it externally. Because I think while mezcal is the fastest growing spirit in the US today, the level of education around it is still pretty low and people are pretty intimidated by it. And so what we did was we launched Mez Pals externally as a platform to educate distributors and our sales reps around, first of all, the category, but then second of all, the Del Maguey portfolio, our producers and our expressions and so forth. And so we officially launched Mez Pals in September in Denver. And I was there to see that through. And since that time, we've been able to educate thousands of distributors and sales reps partners on it, which has been just a really fun way to kind of demystify a category that's often seen as intimidating or sophisticated.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell me more. So how are you guys incorporating these events to your overall brand strategy then? And then what are you, I think my favorite question is always like, what impact do they actually have on these brands? Because you talk about educational events. Tell us more.
Yeah. So I was shocked when I started in the beverage industry 7 years ago, and just how many experiential touch points there are in our industry compared to my old days of deodorant and body wash. And so it feels like there's kind of infinite touch points with the consumer, whether it be going to a liquor store and seeing what's on shelf, or even going to the local bar and asking like, hey, like which mezcal should I use? What would you recommend for this margarita? And so I would definitely have had a big focus on just driving activations with consumers. One of them was leading Absolut's 10th anniversary Coachella activation, where we had an in real life activation along with a metaverse activation. We welcomed tens of thousands of consumers. We were able to immerse them in the ethos of the brand and allow them to sample Absolut Cosmos. So that has been really, really fun and one of my career highlights. But I would say what's more important in my current role is actually around that trade advocacy and education. And so showcasing our beautiful brand with bartenders and other people who work in the industry. And I think when you're able to do that authentically, you're able to create brand advocates, in all parts of the country who are, of course, advocating for your brand. And so this is an industry that's entirely relationship based. And I would say it's highly driven by stories and authenticity. And so that's really been the focus of our brand, and has been a major driver for our growth and our success. We often say that Del Maguey was kind of built bottle by bottle by these individual touch points and events that we have. And then, of course, we do have much bigger and broader events. For example, we're activating again at Tales of the Cocktail this summer in July, which is the biggest bartender festival in the world that takes place every year in New Orleans. And so we have a massive activation there to celebrate Del Maguey's 30th anniversary.
Is it too early to share some of the details, like what exactly, or?
Yeah, I can share a little bit, not too much yet, because obviously you'll have to come if you want to get the full experience, but we'll have 3 different events at Tales of the Cocktail for Del Maguey, as I mentioned, celebrating 30 years. I would say some of them will be a little bit more lighthearted and fun and bringing in energy that you typically don't see in the mezcal category. And then we'll also have another event that's actually really educational focused. And so it'll be led by our co-founder, Steve Olson, who's been with the brand since the start, really talking about what makes Del Maguey special. And there's a lot to talk about with the 20 expressions, the 10 single villages, where each of our products are still made artisanally today, hand labeled and so forth.
It must be so amazing. I can already picture it, right? Because you even mentioned at the end of the day, it's about the storytelling and also it being immersive with like the history. I think when you know the history behind the brand, sometimes you fall in love with that, just with the brand itself already too. So that's so exciting. Good luck to you on that project.
Thank you.
Yeah. How about in terms of the educational events? Like, can you tell me a little bit more? Are they really big? And is it for influencers or is it for people that are in the, hotel space? Like, who gets invited to these fabulous events that you're producing?
Yeah, so transparently, we do events that have a broad range of kind of targets. And so there are some events, as I mentioned, like Absolut, that's purely for a consumer audience. There are other events that I'm organizing, around 1 or 2 weeks that are actually around folks who work at hotels and in hospitality and immersing them in our brand, with an activation led by famous chefs and our brand ambassador. And then, of course, there are also other activations that are more so focused on kind of bartenders and operators and showcasing our liquid credentials, what our brands taste like in a mezcal margarita, for example. So we really do events that run the gamut across different audiences and with different purposes in mind.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to come to one of your events.
They're pretty
Please
fun.
Add me to your list.
Yes.
It sounds fun. That's why I was like, can I get invited? This is so great. As long as you enjoy
mezcal margaritas, I think you'll have a blast.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And then do you only do it in New York or is this nationwide? Because I think you mentioned another event in Denver.
Yeah, so we do events across the nation, and I would say some of them are small, so maybe 10 or so people. We have other events where, as I mentioned, you'll have tens of thousands of people entering them. And so I'd say New York is definitely an important place, knowing that it's one of the most important mezcal markets in the world. And so we have a big trade activation at this year's BarCon in Brooklyn, again, celebrating 30 years. But we do events across the nation, including LA and so forth. So I think we can find one for you and definitely send you the invite details. Maybe get your thoughts as an expert in the space. We'd love your feedback.
Thank you. Looking forward to that. Ready to elevate your next event? Let's chat. Visit Innovate MKG to schedule a game-changing conversation. You've been doing this for a while and you're certainly a leader in your space. Like, can you share a defining moment in your career where you're like, wow, that really shaped my approach when it comes to like brand leadership?
Yeah, I have been doing it for a while. Thank you for the reminder. I'd say one of the most memorable moments I've had was actually just a bad boss. I've had so many bosses now, in my life. I would say I've probably had 30 different managers, and some of them have been amazing, unbelievable teachers. And I've also had some who are maybe not as great. And so I think the one that stands out the most to me is just having a boss who was abusive and really didn't know how to treat people well. And I think there was obviously stress and other factors in her life that contributed to that feeling, and it kind of spread throughout the office. And so I think back to that experience where, on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, just kind of getting yelled at and told all the things I did wrong left me, kind of feeling down in the dumps. I wouldn't say I'm particularly fun to hang out with even now, but I know back then I was just down in the dumps the entire time, and I kind of let it carry with me even on nights and weekends. And so luckily was able to find an amazing home after that and really, really supportive teams, since that point in my career journey, but it taught me so much about what not to do, which in a way I'm super thankful to kind of have that experience. A couple of things that have stuck with me is just like leading with empathy, having a sense for what's going on in other folks' lives, being curious about that. Oftentimes asking questions, which is something that no one really, or not enough people do, I've noticed. And then also just focusing on teaching and being a player coach. So being down in the trenches with the team. And so I'm super thankful for that experience looking back, just because it complements some of the amazing managers that I've had. And gives me a good sense for kind of what to do and what not to do.
And you kind of craft your own, right? Like your own leadership style because of the journey of the different leadership that you have experienced too. And it's so important. I love that what you said, like lead with empathy. Because at the end of the day, we work with people. They're not robots.
Yeah, and oftentimes they have so much going on in their lives. And I think people are hesitant to maybe bring that up front. But I think just leading with empathy or asking a question can oftentimes unlock so much that it's been a really helpful unlock for me.
And if they know you care, they'll actually work harder for you.
Yep.
Like you're not just another number to them, right? I love that. Talk to me about something like a recent win. I always love talking about like a win. So what's a recent win for you that you're super proud of?
Yeah, happy to do so. I would say one has been scaling that Ojo de Tigre Mezcal brand that I mentioned before. So it's a top 5 brand in Mexico. In the US, it's relatively smaller. It's more of a challenger brand. So Pernod acquired a majority stake around a year and a half ago. And I was asked, if I wanted to lead the integration and the national launch. And so I was super excited to, again, just learn and have a different experience typical from those in my past. And I would say at Pernod, commercial teams, have a lot of different brands that they're selling. We have one of the most robust portfolios in the industry with Jameson, Absolut, Malibu, and so many more. But I knew that this product specifically was a winner in that we were in a hot category, beautiful packaging, award-winning liquid, and so forth. And so along with my team, I was able to spearhead basically a commercial roadshow and just get out and talk to anyone who would pick up the phone and basically hand sell them on the product, on the liquid, educating them and giving them a reason to care. And I think since this brand delivers on so many of those key attributes, oftentimes we are met with really positive feedback. And so doing that, actually going out into market and selling into local accounts, like hand pouring liquid samples and allowing bartenders to try it. One really cool experience I had was, of course, there's some states where liquor is sold by the government, right? In Pennsylvania and so forth. So I was able to also present directly to the Pennsylvania control state buyer, tell her on the liquid. And then the next day we got an email that they wanted to take Ojo de Tigre in 150 stores. Was super gratifying for me because I think sometimes, I'm a little bit further removed from these actual sales and so forth. And so that's been awesome. The brand is now growing around 30%. And so it's one of the fastest growing brands in the industry, the fastest growing brand at Pernod Ricard right now. Again, it's still small. So we have, mountains of opportunities, but it's been awesome to see what a small and mighty team is able to accomplish. So I've been really, really proud of that.
That's a great one. I mean, you had direct impact, right? And that's one of the great thing about when it's nimble, because you see it. Because sometimes with a big company, so many people's hands touches it. Everybody has some impact, but this one's like a direct impact. And now that they want to go to 150 stores, check, bucket list.
No,
that's all you. That's great.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. It feels cool to be able to, work hard and then see the impact almost immediately. So I've loved being able to scale the Ojo de Tigre brand, to be able to communicate with the brand's board of directors and so forth. It's been an awesome leadership experience for me that, has been so different from what I've got on Johnnie Walker, which is the biggest international spirits brand in the world that does like $2 billion a year in sales. So completely night and day experiences, but I've loved them both.
Because that's also a more established brand. This, you really have to educate and have people try it out. And that's why events is great. Honestly, I love it. Like through events, people sample, right? And from there, then they could hopefully create fandom after that.
Yep. Events in our industry are really important. We call it liquid to lips, which is essentially, taking whatever the best serve is and just allowing folks to try them. And it goes a long way when you have the really, really, strong product offering, as we do on Ojo de Tigre or Del Maguey or even Johnnie Walker back in the day. It's a great way to recruit people into the brand.
Awesome. So I want to pivot back a little bit when we were talking about leadership. Like, how do you elevate those around you? Because you have done really well for yourself, but now, I think a lot of us in this position is now always thinking like, how do we pay it forward? So how do you elevate those who are around you?
Yeah, in general, I would say just trying to collaborate closely with other people, learn from them, teach them. That's something I'm really passionate about. And so I try to stay curious and always learning. But I think what I've tried to do in the last couple of years is not just focus on my own learning, but also then sharing it with other people in the organization and the team. And so I'm constantly, sharing articles or trainings or recommendations with my broader team, which I think people appreciate. And then more recently, in the last 6 months or so, I've been leading some of our internal Pernod Ricard capabilities trainings for the marketing organization. So that's been really fun and gratifying. In the fall, we did one around commercial marketing. And actually next week, we have Performance Analytics 201. And so that's taking, honestly, the driest and probably the most boring content imaginable, but finding a way to showcasing it to our internal marketing employees in a really fun, engaging way. Of course, there are a lot of memes. There's some White Lotus, some Taco Bell references that I think is going to elevate the broader marketing community so that folks are using, these data and these tools as they're developing their brand strategies. And so I'm kind of crazy about learning. And in the more recent years, I've been loving just sharing these learnings with others through this Marketing Academy programming internally.
Yeah, I've been seeing that on your LinkedIn. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And just the continuous learning, that is a journey. And I think as leaders, we have to continue to evolve as well. That's exactly. So great. How do you stay connected with the consumer, right? Especially with your brands and your industry. Like, do you go out a lot? Do you try out a lot of other drinks other than what you're promoting?
Exactly. Honestly, that is definitely my answer. Is as much as I enjoy being in my office or my home office and getting things done, getting out and about is really the only way to do it. And so I made a commitment at a minimum, once a month to get out and market, whether it's actually selling our brand into local accounts in New York City or the broader area, shadowing our brand ambassador for the day and kind of learning from him, seeing what he does. Or even actually the biggest highlight has been last month. I spent a full week in Oaxaca. So I went down for some of our 30th anniversary celebrations. I spent a couple days just going to the palenques, which are essentially the distilleries where these folks have been making mezcal. And I got to meet some of our producers, face to face. One of them, Faustino, has been making mezcal for 50 years. So he learned how to do it from his dad. And now his son, Maximo, is, part of the family business and also making his own mezcal. And those are two guys who've been with Del Maguey since the start in 1995. He created this mezcal called Chichicapa, which is my favorite of all the Del Maguey expressions. And so to actually meet him face to face, speak with him in Spanish, and then obviously try the mezcal directly from his still was a life highlight that I'll never forget. So really getting out and about has been the most important thing. And I think what it's enabled me to do is now I spent 3 days in the last month also going out, selling our product in a blitz. And so being able to share pictures and stories from these visits has been invaluable in kind of conveying the brand's authenticity.
So empowering, like so inspiring. I love hearing this. As we wrap up, what advice would you give to someone that's looking to start a career in brand marketing?
Yeah, that is a tough one because I feel like there's so much to be said. I, for one, was so green when I started my first job. But I would say because of that, you have to, when you're coming in, recognize that you're the one who's kind of there to learn. And so I'd recommend starting at, honestly, a bigger company that's known for their training, whether it's a P&G or Unilever or Coca-Cola, because these are places that have very well-established training programs, and they really enable you to learn more about whether it's performance analytics or how to write a brief or whatever it is. I think the beauty of that is you're paid to learn, because at that point, you're probably soaking in and learning more than you're contributing. I would say the second thing for brand marketing is it's an interesting mix of creativity and analytics, and you really need both in order to succeed in the industry. I think I've seen a lot of people who maybe struggle with more of the performance and the numbers aspect, others, with maybe the more of the creative aspect, but you really need both to succeed. And then lastly, just kind of leaning in and having a bias for action, getting things done. I would say the brand management function, at least within CPG, is unlike the others, and you're widely regarded as the quarterback or the center of the wheel. And so just being able to lean in and get things done is something that folks really, really respect. So yeah, that's what I would say and kind of leave you on.
Thank you. Like expanding to 150 stores, showing results, not just your effort, right?
Exactly.
I really appreciate you joining us today and giving us such a sneak peek into what it takes when it comes to really leading and also innovating in the brand marketing. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I know the listeners are walking away with fresh ideas and perspective because of your shared knowledge and wisdom today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you. EventUp is powered by Innovate Marketing Group, your go-to partner for unforgettable events and experiences. Discover how we bring brands to life at innovatemkg.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a rating and review. It helps more listeners like you find the show and keeps the inspiration going.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time on EventUp.